Right now, without thinking about it, you are probably wearing technology that is nearly 5,000 years old. Not the fabric, not the thread, the buttons. The oldest confirmed buttons were discovered at Mohenjo-Daro, in what is now Pakistan, dating to around 2,800 years before the Common Era. They were carved from curved mollusk shells, small, smooth, and beautiful, but they were not used for fastening. The holes went through the face of the disc for threading flat onto cloth. These ancient buttons served no fastening function. They sat on the surface of a garment as ornament, the ancient equivalent of a badge or a jewel. Similar ornamental buttons appear in Bronze Age European graves and in ancient China. Humanity kept reinventing the decorative button and kept missing the point entirely. Because none of these cultures figured out how to use a button to close clothing, that problem had a different solution: pins. The Romans held their garments together with the fibula, a metal clasp, effectively an ancient safety pin. Greeks used similar devices. Fabric was wrapped, tied, and pierced, never buttoned. In medieval Europe, most ordinary people wore loose garments pulled over the head or belted at the waist. A garment you could button shut simply did not yet exist. Then, around the middle of the 1200s, most likely in the Germanic regions of Northern Europe, a tailor made a small, deliberate cut. A slit in the fabric, just large enough to push a button through, reinforced at the edges with tight stitching to stop it fraying. The buttonhole had arrived. It sounds almost trivial, a hole in cloth, but this may be the single most consequential innovation in the entire history of human clothing. For the first time, a tailor could cut a garment tight to the body and still make it possible to get on and take off. The buttonhole unlocked fitted clothing. Within a generation, the silhouette of European dress changed dramatically. Loose and draped gave way to structured and shaped. The human form was finally wrapped, not just covered. Historians also note that crusaders returning from the Middle East in the 12 and 1300s had encountered different fastening traditions. Ideas, like armies, crossed borders. By the 1300s, buttons had become an obsession at European courts. Surviving records describe French and English nobles ordering garments with dozens, sometimes over 100, buttons from collar to hem. Buttons were expensive, handmade one at a time from metal, bone, or glass. The more you wore, the wealthier you declared yourself. A button was a status symbol stitched into cloth. By the 1300s, the Paris button trade had grown large enough to support its own guild, organizing to control who could legally make and sell the little discs. Different guilds, tailors, button makers, mercers, disputed who had the right to attach buttons to garments. In medieval Paris, the button was serious enough for court disputes. But among all the strange facts in button history, one of the strangest is on your shirt right now. Men's buttons are on the right, women's buttons are on the left. Why? The most widely cited explanation involves swords. Right-handed men drew weapons from the left hip by reaching across the body. A button on the right side kept that motion unobstructed. For women, a different explanation. Wealthy women were dressed by servants. A right-handed maid, standing face-to-face, buttons more naturally when the holes are on her own right, which is the wearer's left. Neither theory can be pinned to a specific documented moment. Both are plausible and widely repeated. The convention likely solidified through habit and repetition rather than any single decree. Whatever its origin, the convention became global standard. Today it is encoded into every sewing pattern and clothing factory on Earth, a fossil of a world most people have forgotten. For most of history, every button was made by hand. A craftsperson shaped horn, bone, or shell, drilled it, and finished it one piece at a time. Slow, skilled, expensive work. The Industrial Revolution changed all of that. By the 1700s, Birmingham, England had become the button capital of the world, with factories producing metal buttons by the millions. The Birmingham industrialist Matthew Boulton, later known as James Watt's partner in steam, ran metalwork and button operations at his Soho manufactory from the 1760s onward. Through the 1800s, manufacturers experimented wildly. Glass, porcelain, steel, jet cut from black gemstone, gilded metal, painted enamel, fashion demanded novelty, and industry delivered. One of the most popular materials of the late 1800s was the tagua nut, imported from South America. Sliced and polished, it was nearly indistinguishable from true ivory and far cheaper. The flat four-hole shirt button we recognize today was standardized during the Industrial Age. Machines that sized, drilled, and polished them could produce thousands per hour. In 1907, Leo Bekeland invented Bakelite, the world's first fully synthetic plastic. Button manufacturers adopted it quickly. Any color, any shape, at almost no cost. By the mid-20th century, most buttons were polyester resin. The ancient carved shell had become a petroleum product, manufactured by the billion at fractions of a penny each. Around 1913, engineer Gideon Sundback perfected the design that became the modern zipper. The button had survived 5,000 years. Could it survive this? It could. The zipper conquered luggage, sportswear, and denim. But on suits, dress shirts, and formal coats, the button held its position. Some closures demanded a different kind of gravity. Velcro arrived in the 1950s, developed by Swiss engineer Georges de Mestral. Snaps, magnets, hooks, each promised to finally make the button obsolete. None of them succeeded. Those small buttons on a suit jacket cuff are nearly decorative today. They descend from functional buttons that let sleeves roll back. Popular legend, probably apocryphal, credits Napoleon with ordering them added. Today, the city of Kyoto in Zhejiang province, China produces an estimated 60% of all the world's buttons, hundreds of millions per day, shipped to garment factories across the globe. By some industry estimates, roughly 90 billion buttons are manufactured every year. That is approximately 11 or 12 for every person alive on Earth, produced every single year. And at the very top of the market, nothing has replaced shell. The finest dress shirts still use mother-of-pearl cut from trochus or freshwater mussel, prized for exactly the qualities those ancient craftspeople recognized. From a carved ornament in a Bronze Age city to a polyester disc produced by the billion, the button has traveled the full length of human civilization without ever losing its job. The button did not just fasten clothing. It changed what clothing could be. It gave tailors the power to shape garments to bodies and gave fashion its vocabulary of structure and fit. The tight doublets and sculptured sleeves of Renaissance dress, the visual language of 5 centuries of Western fashion, would have been literally impossible to put on without the buttonhole. The buttonhole is one of those inventions so small that history barely marks it. No inventor is credited. No monument records its arrival. And yet it reorganized what people wear every single day. Next time you button a shirt, you are repeating a gesture with a longer history than the Roman Empire. One that passed through the hands of Indus Valley artisans, medieval tailors, and Birmingham factory workers. The motion has not changed. Button through hole. Fabric held closed. 5,000 years of human ingenuity compressed into a gesture you perform without thinking. The zipper, the magnet, the snap, none of them finish the button off. It is still there, on your collar, on your cuff, quietly doing its ancient job. This is Origins. Subscribe and come back tomorrow. There's a new origin every single morning.